p.m. Dead in Bed, Part 1, 50 Shades of Gangrene. I woke up in a motel room I'd never seen before. No matter how hard I thought about it, I had no memory of how I got there or what had happened the previous night. There were beer bottles all over the side table, not to mention a completely empty eighth of Jack Daniels. What looked like some kind of fancy foreign wine bottle, also drained, was filled with cigarette butts. The TV, one of those old boxy sets, had fallen back against the wall, and in the corner, an armchair was lying on its side. Feathers were everywhere. One of the pillows had been torn open. I was pretty sure I was alone. No one was in bed with me. When I leaned over to check the floor, I saw only more feathers and more beer bottles scattered across the carpet, along with my clothes. All of them. My jeans were in a pile against the wall with my underwear still bunched inside. My bra hung over the one armchair that was still standing. I realized, only now, that I was totally naked. And I'd definitely had sex. I was sore, and not just a little. I hadn't felt like this since Sean and I were going at it like rabbits during my senior year of high school. But we hadn't had sex in months, as far as I could remember anyway. I tried not to think about the fact that there was no good reason I would have needed to check into a motel if I'd been with my husband that night. I'm pretty young, but I live in a really small town where just about everyone gets married before they're 20, like I did. It's just what people do around here. I looked at the mess around me. I'd been with Sean plenty long enough to know that he definitely didn't drink wine. Not even whiskey, really. And yet, despite my fear about whatever it was I'd done the night before during my apparent blackout, and despite the pervasive smell of stale cigarettes, and some other smell too, I notice now, something faintly rancid, I felt, well, great. It was as though I'd been sleeping for days and had woken up completely refreshed. I didn't have the slightest headache. I didn't feel a hint of nausea. When I stood up, I practically leapt out of bed. I pulled on my pants and felt like I had the energy to race up the face of a cliff. But I still couldn't remember anything. Other than the bottles everywhere, there was no evidence of whoever else had been with me in the room. The only clothes I'd found on the floor had been mine, and the bathroom was empty. The only thing in the minibar fridge, weirdly, was an empty gallon milk container. I looked under the bed and checked my pockets, but I couldn't find my phone, so I couldn't even look at my recent calls. Had I lost it, or had someone stolen it? I had no idea. Outside, it was a beautiful day, but when I stepped into what I recognized now as the parking lot of the Starlight Motel, I realized that it wasn't morning. The sun was already starting to set. Apparently, I'd slept all afternoon. Now that I was out in the fresh air, things started to come back to me about the day before, if not the night. Suddenly, I remembered what I'd found at the high school with my brother-in-law. I remembered how I had helped carry it even. I remembered the stench, and how afterward I couldn't quite wash off the smell. I wondered if maybe it was the scent I'd been smelling inside the motel room. I also remembered why my car was nowhere to be seen. I live in Muldoon, Colorado, and if you haven't heard of it, you're basically like everybody else in the world who isn't from Muldoon. We don't even have a stoplight. It's that small. The only thing that ever happens is the fair once a year. The kids sell their livestock, there's a carnival, and a rodeo, and everyone pretty much has an excuse to get drunk all weekend. I do the books at this trucking company whose office is right across from the fairgrounds. I usually park in the lot there, and when I got off work early yesterday, there was this huge bus blocking my car. It was emblazoned with a massive Bryce Tripp logo. He was supposed to be this up-and-coming country star, but honestly, I hadn't heard of him before a few days ago. How big could he really be if he was giving a concert at the Muldoon Fair? The people in charge of his bus must have been waiting to get into the rodeo grounds where his concert was going to be, but I couldn't find the driver.